Welcome to Rethinking Death Life. Today's guest is a woman who wears so many hats. She's just one amazing woman and a very humble woman as well. This is Dr. Pamela Prince-Pyle. We've had her on a few times before, a board-certified internal medicine physician, chair of the board for Africa New Life Ministries in Rwanda, and a Museum of the Bible's Woman of Legacy. But more than that, she is just a humble, beautiful Christian woman with her 5 children, 8 grandchildren, so much more, husband, and lives life to the fullest, which is what we are advocating on this podcast. We're so grateful to have her here. And thank you so much. Get ready to be inspired and challenged through the amazing works of Dr. Pamela Pyle. Thank you so much, Pamela.
Thank you so much. And I'm just a Jesus follower and grateful to be used by him and serve him in every way I can.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you on this podcast and talking about being better caregivers. One of my questions is, what are the most meaningful ways that caregivers can offer emotional support to a loved one who's ending end of life, even if they feel their words are just inadequate?
You know, a lot of times the most important thing is to be a powerful listener and allow the patient to speak all of the things that they may be fearful about or hopeful about. And then you might offer some leading questions of, you know, what memories stand out to you that I can write down and share your legacy with my children. And in that way, you're empowering them to know that their life had meaning.
Exactly.
And then finally, as time draws close to the end, be sure and say, I love you. I know you love me. All things are forgiven if there's any issues of reconciliation. But then also say, we'll be okay. And it's okay for you to let go. We'll be okay.
It's so important. In your book, you describe how the last sense that the people dying lose is their sense of hearing. So I think one of the things that just hit me from your book was that when you're having conversations around a dying person, always to make sure it's conversations that you want him or her to hear. So that was the whole discussion around dying is such a sacred discussion. So thank you so much for that. But so as caregivers, how can we balance that desire to kind of keep our loved ones comfortable and respect their autonomy and their wishes during the dying process?
Well, hopefully, and certainly after reading Anticipating Heaven, you'll understand the importance of having a plan that is designed by the patient themselves. So their autonomy is heard even when they're no longer capable of making decisions themselves. Their voice carries forward to the future. So honoring that is extremely important. And then in the book, I talk about a list of things called Comfort Me. And it's really a combination of life experience and dying experience over 30 plus years of medicine that patients really want at the end of life. They don't want you to be afraid of their death. They want you to be with them in their dying. And my next book is called Praising My Way Home. And the more that we can help bring praise and worship into the journey home, we're walking our loved one home to their glorified body into the heaven that we all can anticipate.
So like, I hear what you're saying, and um, just like do ask, like, what are the common fears or emotional barriers caregivers face when supporting a dying one, and how can they overcome that and foster that deep sense of connection during these precious end of life times?
I think people are very afraid to say the wrong thing, so they say nothing. Um, and the reality is the there's not a real wrong thing, but you have to be sensitive to, the patient if you're a caregiver. Um, don't bring up topics that might bring discomfort. Don't be afraid to talk about death. Um, don't stand in the corner as the person that's just so uncomfortable in the moment that the patient feels, you know, like they're going to give their death to someone else, almost like an infectious disease. Um, be there, be at their bedside. Don't walk away when it's hard. And dying is easier on the patient than it is on those caregivers and loved ones.
So important.
So I'm calling you to be tough and to be bold and to be faithful and to stick it out, even when it's hard.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you. Are there like any special rituals or circumstances or conversations or small acts of care that you've seen that might make a significant difference for both the dying person and the loved one, the caregiver during this sacred time?
Yes, so there's something called near-death awareness, and that can be reflected in many ways. Sometimes it's a patient describing packing their suitcase and getting on a train. Sometimes it's seeing family members that have passed before them. And sometimes it's seeing Jesus or seeing heaven. And if it's not immediate to death, caregivers or family members may feel like that's confusion or delirium or hallucinations and try to deny what the patient is describing. If they're seeing someone in the corner of the room that's passed, you don't say, "Oh, there's nobody there." You just say, "Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that beautiful that you get to see them now?" And so don't make it an argument on the way out the door.
Right, right. We don't deny what they say. We just acknowledge it and stay present with it. And I guess I would ask Dr. Pearl if there was something that people wanted to say to somebody who was dying, and they hadn't said it yet. Like my question to the audience, our listeners, is like, say it now. Like say it now. Don't wait. Don't think, well, I can do it later or all that kind of stuff. I would just
I'll
say,
be there.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Um, so the question was the specific, if they're afraid to, could you
Well,
ask that question?
it's just like, people think, oh, I'll say it sometime in my life, or this is what I want to ask. And I just want to say to our listeners, say whatever you're gonna want to, should have, whatever, say it now. Say it now, because you might not
Yes.
have the next now. None of us know when that time clock is ending. I mean, some of us have a little bit more notice, given our diagnosis, but none of us really know when that time clock is going to kick off for us. So, um,
You know, I think that's a very important point is say it now. And shouldn't we do that every single day? because
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
don't know when a plane crash will occur or a diagnosis is given. And so don't say the things you wish you'd said at some future day.
One of the things our
Say
family,
it in love now.
yeah.
Life, Billy Graham, in his 60s, he said, he was asked, what's the most important thing you've learned thus far in your life? And he said, the brevity of life. So say it now is a very good, beautiful thing to do.
Say it now. Say it
My,
now.
my family learned just for years that before we hang up the phone, leave, we always say, love you. We just always say it. And my son died suddenly. And the last thing he had heard from all of his family members was, I love you. And that was so important to us to know that that's the last thing we said to him. And we just don't know when things are going to happen.
And I'm so sorry for your loss. And it's a beautiful thing you have done to bring beauty out of a terrible tragedy.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Pamela Pyle, for being with us today. And to all our listeners, please, we'd ask you to subscribe and like and share if this has been a meaningful conversation to those who think you could benefit from this podcast today. So thank you again.
My pleasure. I love your podcast and will be sharing it myself.
Thank you so much.